DreAllDay.com.
You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, one daily masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how to accept the stupidity of other people and maybe even their rudeness as well. How can you deal with that when you feel like you're dealing with somebody who is really rude on purpose? I mean, they're just trying to be nasty to other people, maybe specifically to you, or maybe they're just a nasty person and you just happen to come around, or somebody who's just being stupid. They're just doing things that are unnecessary, things that are just, that they just don't need to be doing. It's just making the situation worse, but it seems to be intentional on their end. How can you deal with it without allowing yourself to stoop to that individual's level? Now, before I go into this and talking about where this came from and getting into the topic more, let me tell you that I have a text line where I want you to text me and tell me the best insight you got from this today, something that I said that made you think. If you have a question or challenge or comment on anything that I said, all of that can be done by sending a text to my text number directly at 305-384-6894. Once you're there, not only once you confirm that you're in, you can not only engage with me there, you also will be getting my daily motivation text messages, which I send out every single morning straight to your phone. And my number again, 305-384-6894. I thought about this topic because, well, listen, all of us deal with these type of situations. Right? Have you not dealt with going into a business and there was some customer service person or employee or just someone who you would expect based on their job title and their position is going to help you out, but it seemed like they were more concerned with or more interested in, or the outcome became that they created more of a conflict. It was more of a what's the word that I'm looking for here? They were more of a counterpart to you than helping you out. And instead of being on your side and trying to help you get whatever it is that you needed and help you have a good day, they actually kind of made it like it was you against them in a situation, even though you're a customer maybe and they're an employee at a business or something like that. I remember I was traveling recently and there was a maintenance worker I remember I was in a gym and there was a maintenance worker mopping the floor while I was inside the gym, and I'm in the middle of in between sets and they're asking me to move out of the way so that they can mop the floor, when what they really should have been doing is waiting until I was done so then they can mop the floor. I mean, what's the purpose of mopping the floor? Keeping it clean for the people who use the gym, right? Well, I'm using the gym, so don't ask me to move so you can mop the floor. That's not more important than the actual people in the gym, because if there's no people like me paying a membership fee and using the gym, then there's no purpose of mopping the floor because that gym won't be open. Or I remember once I was at a Starbucks years ago and I was sitting inside at one of the tables and there was a guy, he was sweeping the floor. And as he's sweeping the floor, he's sweeping underneath the chair and underneath the table that I'm sitting at, but he didn't even bother to say, excuse me, or hey, sorry, I just need to I want to sweep under that table real quick. He just did it as if I wasn't even sitting there. And then when I'm looking at him as he's mopping, his broom is like hitting the legs of the stool that I'm sitting on, and he didn't even acknowledge the fact that there was a human being sitting on the stool. And this is either he was rude. I don't think he was trying to be rude. I would consider it to be rude, but I don't think he was trying to be rude. I think he just didn't have the people skills, the communication skills, or the wherewithal to understand exactly what he was doing. Or I remember I went into a business during COVID. This is when I was traveling also. And as soon as I walked into business, the woman at the counter, I started to ask her a question. She said, well, you have to have on a medical mask in order to be served. And she wasn't even being polite about it. It's the same thing that happened with this guy working at Starbucks. So again, was she trying to be rude? I don't know. I can't read the woman's mind. But was it kind of stupid that she would do that, being that she's talking to a customer? The only reason she has a job there is because there are customers. These things I just consider to be stupid. But maybe it's not stupid, because if she didn't know, she didn't know. Then it would just be ignorant. And the difference is ignorance is not to know. Stupid is when you do know and you do something anyway. But the point is, whenever you feel, just from your perspective, that someone is being rude by your measure of rudeness, or someone's being stupid by your measure of stupidity. Basically, you know about it and you think that they should know about it, but it's clear that they don't. How do you deal with these situations? Or why do we need to let these things go and move forward? Should you engage with these people? Should you get them a piece of your mind? What should you do in these situations when you think somebody has some things that they really need to learn and you are actually capable of teaching? Is it worth it to engage with these people? Is it worth it to even go down that rabbit hole? That's what we're going to talk about here today. So let's get into it. Point number one. Topic, once again, is how to accept the stupidity of other people. Number one, in the book, The Art of War, was a book that everybody should read, even if you don't plan on going to war. Sun Tzu said, if you are not in danger, do not fight. So I'm going to paraphrase that, and I'm going to tell you what Dre Baldwin says, okay, in today's masterclass. If you do not gain and they will not learn, do not explain. I'll repeat. Sun Tzu said, if you're not in danger, don't fight. Meaning, what Sun Tzu was saying is that if a person is not in a position where they can actually physically hurt you or do anything to you, then you don't need to put yourself in a position to hurt them or do anything to them, because you're not really defending yourself because they can't do anything to you. If a person can't hurt you, you don't need to position yourself to hurt them, because you're actually not playing defense. At that point, you're kind of playing offense. And then at that point, you could be actually putting yourself in a position of danger, because now you're playing off against somebody who can't hurt you, and that can end up in a legal situation. So don't fight if you're not in danger. Here's what I'm saying. When you come across a person who, again, by your estimation, is rude or stupid, if there's nothing for you to gain, and there's also nothing that they're going to learn, because maybe they just don't understand what they don't understand. They don't know what they don't know. And you can, just by gauging their energy and their approach, that they just don't see things the way you see them, obviously. Don't invest any of your resources in explaining to them how they're dumb or how they're stupid or how they're rude. Don't invest, because there are some people who just aren't going to learn. Can we agree that there are some people out there in your life, or that you come across in your life, who just aren't on the same plane as you intellectually? They're just not on the same plane as you when it comes to politeness and people skills and communication and just overall, just knowing how to deal with people. Have you ever dealt with someone who you can tell they're just not on the level? It's not even that they're doing it on purpose. Again, they just only know what they know. And there's a huge gap between what they know and what they understand, and what you know and what you understand. It's not even worth it for you to try to explain things to them, because they're just not going to get it. It's like you're speaking a different language. And if you're not going to get anything from it, it's one thing if I'm teaching somebody who wants to learn, then I can feel good that I taught them something, because they'll get it, they'll appreciate it, and they'll do better. But if they don't really want to learn, or they don't even realize that there's something that they need to learn, then I don't get anything, because I didn't help anyone, because they didn't hear me. And they don't get anything because they wouldn't understand it even if I started talking. In these cases, just let it go. These are situations where you just have to walk away. You could shake your head. You could go make a podcast episode about it, but you got to let it go, because there's nothing for you to gain in the situation. It's not worth it for you to share your knowledge with a person who is not looking for it and doesn't want it. So get yourself out of that situation or away from the situation, so that you are not tempted to give another person a piece of your mind, because they're not going to appreciate that piece of your mind anyway. Save it for someone who actually wants it. It is not worth your time. It's not worth your effort. Remember your 5 forms of investment: time, money, attention, energy, focus. Don't give them to something that's not going to produce a return on investment. If you're giving your time, money, attention, energy, and focus to something that is not paying you back, then that is a bad investment. It's still an investment, but it's a bad investment, meaning that you put something in, but you never get anything back. You put time into something, hopefully you get something back on the back end that makes that time investment worth it. But if you're talking to someone who is just kind of stupid and kind of rude, and they just don't even understand what they don't understand, what's the point in talking to that person? What do you get? Nothing. What do they get? Also nothing. So why do it? The answer is you don't do it. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to accept the stupidity of other people. When another person is being rude or dumb, again, by your estimation of being rude or dumb, often they're not trying to be that. Often, again, as I explained in point number 1, they don't even realize that what they're doing is rude, because they don't have the same sensitivities as you. They don't have the same home training as you. They don't come from the same environment that you come from. They don't see things the same way that you see them. And we have to accept the fact that that's all right, because everybody is unique. this is what sometimes people are being rude, and this is just what they see as normal or okay or justifiable for whatever reason. And this is just what makes sense to that person. I remember I was at a restaurant with Anna and a couple of friends that she knows a lot better than I know. I knew them, but she knows them. We were there because she knows these people. And we ordered some food for the table, and the gentleman who we're sitting with, he picks up it was like these dumpling type food. And this is what's the word? Like a restaurant of food from other countries. So this is not American food that we're eating. And Anna explained to me that this particular dumpling that this guy was eating, traditionally, this food is eaten with your hands. So he's picking it up with his hands and he's eating the food, and that's all fine and good. I mean, we eat here in America, we eat hamburgers and french fries with our hands, right? So he's eating the food with his hands. The thing is, the way that these dumplings are made is that inside the dumpling, there's some meat, and there's also is juice. There's some juicy meat inside of there. It's kind of like broth. It's like kind of meat broth and meat inside of the dumpling. So when you bite into the dumpling and you're holding it with your hand, all the juice from inside the dumpling starts dribbling down your face and maybe onto your clothes and onto your hands and all that stuff. So we're sitting at the table eating. It's me, Anna, this guy, and his wife and their kid. And he's eating these dumplings, and we're talking and having a good time and laughing and all this stuff. And I'm watching him eat, and he's picking these dumplings up, and the juice from inside the dumpling is running down his face, is running down his hands, and he doesn't see anything. He doesn't see anything wrong with this. He's just going on as if nothing is happening. This is just a normal thing for him. And now every time I think about that guy, or every time I see that food, I think about him and I think about that situation. Not even necessarily, I'm not saying that to say that this man was rude or dumb or there's anything wrong with him. He's actually, as far as I know, a pretty smart guy and a good businessman. But it was just funny that he was eating it that way, and he just saw this as a normal thing. Whereas many people from the United States, the way that we are used to eating, or at least some of us, let me be clear, some of us are used to eating. We were looking at him like he's crazy. Like, yo, why don't you wipe your hands or eat that with a fork and knife, because it's spilling all down your hands and face like you're some 2-year-old. And this is just an example of what I'm saying here, that some people, not everybody has the same sensitivities about how we deal with each other. Just the other day, I'm recording this on a Monday, and just this past Friday, I was talking to a friend of a friend, and she was telling me how she went to this meeting with some people who work in the city, like they work in the local city government down here in South Florida. And there was a prominent man who works in the city government, not going to say what his position is, but this prominent man, she says, every time he comes to one of their gatherings, he comes to the event and he brings French fries. And he sits there and he eats the French fries, with his mouth open. Like he chews with his mouth open. And he sits there eating French fries, and he's supposed to be like one of the most high up people in the whole situation, sitting there eating French fries with his mouth open. And she was saying it in such a way, the way she told the story, and she didn't say this in so many words, but I could read in the context clues of how she was saying it, was that she considered that behavior to be kind of rude, especially because of his position. It was kind of unbecoming of the position that he held, unbecoming of his stature. He's going to sit there eating French fries while people are looking at him as like a leader in this situation, but he's sitting there eating French fries. And she is like, no, she has a little bit less respect for him because of the way that he conducts himself eating these French fries in these meetings where he's supposed to be a leader of the situation. I remember once when I was this is probably in high school, I was on the bus going home from school, and in Philadelphia, where I'm from, there was a McDonald's at the Broad Street and Alney Avenue Transportation Center. This is a big area where there's a whole bunch of buses and a whole bunch of trains and all this stuff. So everybody coming from work and coming from school, a lot of people would pass through this one area. So it was all these different buses, all these trains and stuff. And there's this very popular McDonald's right there on the corner. So not everybody, but a lot of people were going to the McDonald's, get themselves an extra value meal, some fries, a burger, whatever, and eat the McDonald's on the bus on their way home. So one day, I remember it was a bunch of kids who were a little bit older than me. I was maybe a freshman in high school, and there were a bunch of kids in there who maybe juniors and seniors in high school. They're sitting on the bus talking to each other, and I'm sitting in the back of the bus. They're all in the back of the bus, and they're all talking. I don't know them, so I'm just sitting there. I'm observing and seeing them, but I'm not saying anything. And there was this one guy, he had a McDonald's extra value meal. Y'all don't know the extra value meal. I don't even know if they sell extra value meals anymore. But anyway, it was a burger, fries, and a drink. So he had the burger, fries, and a drink. And he's talking to his friends and eating the extra value meal while he's talking. And he's having a good time and he's eating. And there was this one girl, this black girl, who was on the bus. And she didn't know the guy, but she was sitting there and she kind of knew some of the people in the group, but she didn't know this guy. But the whole time that he's eating, he eats his burger, like his nuggets or whatever it is that he had. And then he's eating the fries. And he's laughing and he's talking while he's eating it. And I'm seeing the expressions on the girl's face while she's watching him eat. And she's like disgusted by the way that he's eating because he's not using a napkin. And it was funny because it's not like he was being dirty. It's not like he was spilling the food or anything like that. He was just eating. And he was just eating. He wasn't using the napkin in between bites or anything like that. But she's looking at him like he's like the scum of the earth because he's not wiping his hands or wiping his face as he's eating. He's talking and he's laughing. And she just has this look on her face. And I don't know her, I don't know him, and they don't know each other. So it's just like this triangle. And then finally, she pulls a napkin out of her purse or something and hands him a napkin. And he says, "Thank you." But he didn't even notice. The funny thing is, he didn't even notice the way that she was looking at him. He never noticed it. Only I noticed it. And then he said thank you to her, thanked her for the napkin. But he still didn't realize that she was giving him the napkin because she thought he was kind of being disgusting. He just thanked her for the napkin and kept talking as if nothing ever happened. And this is the point that I'm making. Sometimes in life, what they're doing is normal to them, but you might think is rude or stupid to you. But understand, everybody's not you. Everybody's not think like you. And she, to her credit, to the woman's credit who gave him and these is kids, so we're all in high school. To the girl's credit who gave him the napkins, she didn't lecture him. She didn't tell him that he needed to, learn new table manners when he's sitting on the bus eating McDonald's. She just handed him the napkin. She, said you're welcome when he said thank you for the napkin, and then she kind of let it go. But this is all illustrating my point. She actually did it right. She didn't start telling him that he was wrong. She didn't start telling him how she learned how to eat McDonald's. I don't know what her style would have been had she been the one with the extra value meal. But this is what sometimes people are doing, things that they see as normal, okay, and justifiable for whatever reason, and it makes sense to them, and it is not worth your effort and energy and time to explain to them that what they're doing is wrong. Sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. Now, I will admit myself, this is a situation I just told you. This is a female. I don't think females always have the same energy as males to want to give people a piece of their minds. But I think as males, sometimes we do. Now, the situation I told you earlier, I'm sitting in Starbucks. This guy is sweeping underneath the table that I'm sitting at. His broom is hitting the stool that I'm sitting on. And I'm looking at him, and his broom is hitting the stool, and he didn't even make eye contact with me. I don't know if he was trying to be rude, or he just didn't have the people skills, or he just didn't think it was a thing because his broom didn't actually hit me. So I guess he thought it was okay for it to hit the stool. I consider that to be rude. I didn't say anything to him in that situation, but many times, 9 times out of 10 in a situation like that, I would say something. And I would say to him, like, dude, like, your broom is hitting my stool. You could at least say, excuse me. I wouldn't have been confrontational about it. And he probably would have said, oh, my bad. And it would have been over. It would have been a quick little 5-second exchange. But many times I will say something in those type of situations. But what I'm telling you here, and the same thing I'm going to tell myself, sometimes not even worth it. Because what is he going to gain? The next time somebody's sitting in the stool and he's sweeping, he might just go and do the exact same thing all over again because he was just saying my bad because I said something to him, not because he sees it as a need to make some type of behavioral change. As I stated in point number 1, sometimes in life it is not worth your time to educate another person on something that they don't know. Now, let me be clear. Now, if you go and make a big deal out of it, if you go point out to another person that they need to educate themselves, well, now you've made it your job. So like I told you in episode 1822, the title of that episode is, It's Not My Job to Educate You. Yes, it is. If you go tell somebody they need to learn something, all right, now you have appointed yourself a job. Now you have to go educate them because you brought it up. So don't tell somebody they're lacking education and then leave them hanging. But if you think they need education and you don't want to get involved, just don't say anything. Maybe time will teach them, maybe time won't, and they'll just have to go on living how they live, but it is not your business. You don't have to get involved in other people's business. How another person lives and another person being rude or ignorant or stupid, if that's what they want to be, it is their business and it's their right. And remember, if there's not impugning upon your rights and is not stopping you from doing what you need to do, you don't have to get involved if you don't want to. You can choose to, but if you do, now you're giving yourself a job. Remember your 5 forms of investment from episode 609. Time, money, attention, energy, focus. Time is the most valuable of all. Do not waste your time where there is no return on investment. It is a waste of time if you know that there's no ROI, but you give it anyway. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to accept the stupidity and possibly the rudeness of other people. Number 3, a person is measured by the size of the thing or issue or person that can slow you down and stop your flow. This is especially important for us males out there, as I just mentioned, who sometimes we tap into our toxicity. We tap into our toxic masculinity and we stoop down to the level of dumb people. Sometimes we just do this as males, not because we are dumb, but because that testosterone and that toxic masculine energy that sometimes we go to the far extremes of masculinity, sometimes we just feel like we need to prove a point. And not because we are going to gain anything tangibly, it's just because we're men, and sometimes as men we do dumb shit just based on our egos. Now, the ladies who are listening to this, it's possible that you all do this as well, but I don't have the experience of being a female, so I can't speak from the female experience. But I do know from the male experience, from being a male for damn near 40 years and from being around males, I have done myself and seen many males do things, not because there was anything positive for us to gain, anything tangible for us to gain, but just because as males with the testosterone within us, that we just felt like we needed to prove a point just because, and doing something that we really, really did not need to do. Most of the time, there was nobody lost anything. There was no bad outcome from it, but it was just a waste of energy that we really didn't need to waste. And usually when we're younger, we make these mistakes more often. And as we get older, hopefully, as a man gets older, we become more mature and we calm down enough that we stop making these dumb mistakes. And this is how I am, hopefully, mature enough in a place where I can point these things out, but I'm not actually doing it anymore. Now, I talked about toxic masculinity in episode 1744. The topic was when to be an asshole and engage your toxic masculinity. So let me be clear here that I'm not saying this as any type of saint. There are times where I will know that I'm being an asshole. I will know that I'm engaging my toxic masculinity. I will know before I even do or say something, and I'll do it anyway. You know why? Because I'm a man and I have masculine energy, and sometimes I just feel like doing it. There are many examples I could give you that I'm not going to go into today, but I've gone into in the past and went into in that episode and will go into in the future where I will do something that is no quote unquote toxic, and I know exactly what the hell I'm doing. I'm going to do it anyway because I feel like it. Now, hopefully, those episodes are fewer and further between the more mature and older I get, and hopefully I continue to grow as a person. Now, all that being said, we're still on point number 3 here. A person is measured by the size of the thing that can stop your flow. And again, especially for males, because sometimes we just do dumb shit that we don't need to do because we had testicles and that testosterone is hard to stop the flow. It's hard to stop the flow that moves us into doing something that we don't really need to do. It takes a high level of maturity, and from what I understand, females mature a lot faster than males. Sometimes males don't ever get to full 100% maturity. Sometimes we got to tap into that toxicity because, again, sometimes we just feel like it. And I'm putting this point here just as a reminder for any of us who's listening, male or female, or any of you who varies between the genders, depending on how you feel each day. All right, we are all inclusive here at Work On Your Game. For any of us to make sure that we have the discipline and the poise to stay away sometimes when that toxicity of masculinity makes us want to engage in something that there is no ROI in engaging in, and understand that masculine energy is available to all of us. Females have masculine energy as well. Usually males have more of it and females have more feminine energy, but we all have some of both. And every one of us has a different balance, and we can I'm sure there's some science behind this that I can't explain, but we can alter how much of each we have depending on the decisions that we make and the ways that things that we listen to, things we take into that help us condition ourselves in the way that we think. So all that said, understand that sometimes we may all go into giving somebody a piece of our mind when we didn't really need to. Don't beat yourself up over it, but just keep this in mind, what I'm saying here today. So maybe you do it a little bit less often so that you can save your resources for things that really matter in your life. And again, the more mature you become, the older you get, probably the more you think about the things that really matter and the less you focus on the things that don't. So let's recap today's class, which is how to accept the stupidity and rudeness possibly of other people. Whether this is an employee at a business that you walk into, whether it's somebody in your family who says something, whether it's some stranger on the street who steps on your shoe and doesn't say excuse me, whether it's a next door neighbor who just doesn't understand common decency. Sometimes in life you should engage, and sometimes you need to be able to let things go. Today is about learning how to let things go a little bit more often if we can. Point number one, Sun Tzu said, if you are not in danger, do not fight. Dre Baldwin says, if you cannot gain and they will not learn, don't waste your time explaining. It is not worth it giving your knowledge to a person who doesn't want the knowledge. They won't hear what you said, therefore they didn't learn, and you didn't gain anything because you didn't teach anyone. You can't teach somebody who's not willing to listen to you. It's not worth your time, not worth the effort. Number two, when people are being rude or being dumb or being stupid, many times they're not trying to be. They're just being who they normally are, and that makes sense to them. It may not make sense to you, but it's not your business what makes sense to another person. It is not worth your time to educate that person. Now, if you engage and tell them they need to be educated, now you have to do it. But if you don't say anything and just let them stay stupid, you have a choice to do that as well. It is not your life to live, it is theirs. Do not waste your time where there is no ROI. And number three, a person is measured by the size of the thing or issue or person that can stop their flow. This is especially important for males who sometimes tap into our toxicity and stoop ourselves down to the level of stupid people, usually other males, because we are all dumb. Not because we're dumb, rather, but because we all have a male ego that sometimes moves us to feel like we need to prove a point. Not because we're going to gain anything, but because we're men, and sometimes as men we do stupid shit based on ego. Now again, females, this may apply to you as well, but I'm not a female, so I can't speak from the female experience. But I made this point just as a reminder for all of us to hopefully this helps you, it may be one time in life, have the discipline and the poise to stay away when your energy is making you want to engage with someone that is not worth your time. Remember that you only have 5 forms of investment: time, money, attention, energy, focus, and time, the most important one. Once it is used on an engagement, you can never get that time back. So keep your time and use it for what matters most in your life, which is usually not stupid people. Send me a text to tell me the best insight you got from today's class. My number is 305-384-6894. Work on your game. Dre, all